This is Helen Cahill, Heidi Jacobs, and Carolyn McCormick. Some of you may already have met with us. We think we're expecting a couple people we know to be watching today. So welcome. Shout out to Jim and Beverly.
Yes.
And
we got your emails.
Yes, we got your emails. Thank you, Jim and Beverly. But we are today going to be talking about the differences between assisted living and nursing care. If at any time you maybe have to step away from the webinar, we are recording it. So it will be up on our website probably by the end of the week. And you can also see other recordings there of past webinars. And our website is knollwoodcommunity.org. So now we're going to kind of help people better understand the differences between assisted living and nursing care.
We always like to start the webinars or pretty much any presentation we do with a short overview of Knollwood. So Knollwood is a nonprofit community. We are in Northwest DC, right near Rock Creek Park on 16 acres, which is really wonderful. You have to be 62 or better to live here, and we are a life plan community.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
And within the community, being a life plan community, that means that we have, at a minimum, independent living and nursing care. And the majority of Knollwood is independent living, the vast majority of the community, but then there is a small assisted living neighborhood and a small nursing neighborhood within Knollwood. And so we're going to really be focusing on those neighborhoods because those are for people who do need help and care. Yeah. So today we're going to kind of help you just understand a lot of lingo that you may hear. If you have someone that you know that is having some health or cognition changes and you might start shopping around, you might hear a lot of foreign terms and you may be unprepared for how is care or help paid for. So we're just going to try and help you learn enough so that you can go out there and feel a little bit armed when you start looking for somebody that needs help.
Mm-hmm.
I need to do the testing.
All right.
Today.
We love to do tests in these webinars, talking about levels of care. It's kind of a good check for us and for you in the audience. So I'll start with this one. I'll read through the scenario. We will not give you the answer right away. It will be later on in the presentation, but just keep in mind. Okay. So we've got Jane and John. They live in a community that's got programs. That's great. Housekeeping, dining, wonderful. They both need medication reminders. Jane and John, they both move around. John is a little bit slower. Jane doesn't cook or clean. Their apartment has a kitchenette. She needs help with showering. He has a stable but chronic illness. So what do you think? Do they live in assisted living or nursing care? So just think about that. And Heidi will do the next one on the next slide.
So another test, Julie lives in the community and she has got her social programs and activities and the things she enjoys doing. She's got housekeeping and dining, and she gets around with very little help. She's got a little bit of trouble with incontinence and some medical issues requiring her to be monitored. She's got diabetes and she cannot do her own finger sticks. So does she live in assisted living or independent living?
It also says she cannot be counted on to stick with her diet too.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yes.
So these are important things.
They are.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind as we move forward. We'll come back to it.
The hope is that you've learned enough through this session that you'll be able to give a correct answer later.
Yes.
Yes.
And we're not going to grade you, are we?
No.
Okay.
No.
So I'll talk a little bit about the different types of communities that are out there, because there are a lot. As I mentioned before, Knollwood is a life plan, and we offer mainly independent living, but we do have healthcare here so that if somebody does come to live at Knollwood and then they have a change later on, they won't have to wonder, or their family won't have to wonder, how do we help mom and dad?
Yeah.
There are also freestanding independent living communities. You are very familiar with those.
Oh, yeah, I've worked at several.
And they're usually rentals, right?
They are.
Mhm.
Correct.
They're usually going to be a rental community, so that means you would have a lease. And leases can end. So that's one main difference. There's also freestanding assisted living.
And on those as well. Yes. And the unfortunate thing is that I also remember a lot of people do need more care later living in independent living or assisted living. So in either of the freestanding communities, you'll see that several people have to move.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there are some places that are combinations. There are also freestanding nursing centers. You know, a lot of times people just have to go to a nursing center short term. Maybe they got a new need, then they need some therapy for that. And then rarely will you find a combination of assisted plus nursing care in a freestanding. So Knollwood is a life plan, and we've got all sorts of levels of living, including care levels.
All the levels you would need.
You want to tackle this one, Helen? This is your
Sure.
favorite.
Yes.
What to talk about.
I love it. So life plan communities, as we've mentioned, we are a life plan community. There are different types, which you may or may not be familiar with. We are a type C, which is fee for service. So you're paying for care if and when you need it. There are other types, type A, type B, where like with type A, you're paying in to care that you may or may not use in the future. So it is good to know when you're looking at communities, especially if you're looking at a life plan community, what type you're looking at. You'll hear the word continuum. There's continuum of care, you know, and then we will dig into both instrumental as well as activities of daily living on the next two slides. We'll break it down because you will hear some acronyms, ADLs, especially as we're talking about kind of differentiating assisted living versus nursing care. Okay.
A lot of freestanding places will also use the word continuum, but they may not actually have nursing care.
Yes, it's like steps of care, how much care is needed.
Yeah. So you want to talk about some of these, Heidi, the instrumental activities?
Sure. So you're going to hear activities of daily living or ADLs.
Well, this is instrumental
Oh,
activities.
instrumental daily activities. Okay. So maintaining your household, cleaning, these are all the things, managing your money, being able to shop for your groceries and getting the personal things you need. Transportation, of course, is a very important one, and medication management, taking your prescriptions, being able to use your phone so you can call the people that you need.
Yeah. So it's things we take for granted.
Absolutely.
We do all these things every day.
Mhm.
And if somebody's having trouble with one or any of these things, it actually signals it's a red flag.
Yes, so someone who is coming into independent living, they don't even think about this stuff. Someone who's looking at assisted living, they may need help with some of these things. And that's a signal to us. If someone is coming to talk to us and trying to figure out maybe they're looking for a family member and they just visited them and they notice the house isn't really clean and they're behind on a couple bills, and you know, this would signal to us that person is really appropriate for assisted living, probably.
And then the activities of daily living relate more to your personal body
Right.
versus things you can and can't do. So in assisted living, not only is there help with things like cooking and cleaning, and but you're going to also get help with some of the things that maybe you can't do for yourself anymore. You know, maybe you're fine showering, but someone really needs to be there standing outside the shower. Okay. Or maybe you're, great at eating, but maybe you have trouble cutting the food or cooking. So there are things, that you would need help with that really relate to your own person versus more of your surroundings.
Right.
And all of these things are addressed in assisted living. I will say, though, that if somebody actually needs help with all of these things, they most likely, their care needs are even higher than what assisted living would provide.
Yeah, that's more nursing level care. Yep.
We can talk a lot about these, all these.
The
honey.
lingo.
Yeah.
So you'll hear home health aid and home care aid, which there is a difference we can talk about later. in a
Talk about
minute.
it
Okay.
now, yeah.
Nursing assistance aid, medication aid, and companion. And often these have different certifications or so home health aides and home care aides are going to help you with your medications if they have a medication certification. But if not, they may help you with bathing and dressing and toileting and things like that. And a companion is more going to be someone that doesn't have that licensing, but they can drive you, they can sit with you, they can help with things like that. Do you want to add anything?
Like a companion is, think of it more like as a friend,
Yeah,
almost.
that helps run errands.
Yeah, yes, right. They really aren't even supposed to be touching you.
Right.
So if you needed help with getting dressed, a companion is not legally supposed to do that.
Right.
They don't have any training or certification in how to help people with physical needs.
Mhm.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I don't know if we told people to key in their questions.
Oh gosh, you're so right.
If you have questions, please make sure to key them in. There's a chat box and also a Q&A. We
Yes.
are here to answer your questions today.
Oh,
So
yes,
please make
and we
sure you
want
do that.
to, definitely.
Yes.
Good point.
Yes. I think we just got too excited.
That you were on. Oh, looks like we have a question already.
All right.
So we'll pause and take this one.
Mhm.
If someone wanted to come to your assisted living or nursing care, how quick is the process before someone can move in? Well, there are regulations that tell us what type of information that is needed. And with assisted living, people often have to visit their doctor. So sometimes it may depend on how quickly your doctor will see you. And then there has to be an assessment, and somebody actually has to be living here within 30 days of their assessment.
It also depends upon
Availability.
availability.
Yes.
That's a big thing too.
Yes.
So
So if there is an availability when you're looking, then, we would, probably have to turn you away. At Knollwood, the availability for assisted living and nursing care, the first priority, of course, are people who already lived here in independent living. Maybe they're having a change. But when we have an opening and there's no resident facing changes, then somebody who doesn't live here can become a resident directly to assisted living or nursing. And so there's a little bit of a process
yes.
to come here to stay. If your doctor can make things happen quickly, then we may be able to as well.
Mhm.
But usually your timing would be a month or shorter. And nursing care is much faster than that.
Yeah.
If there's an opening, your doctor would have to send to us the complete chart of the person that you're looking for. If they happen to be in rehab notes, medication listing, and usually the person would need to arrive in a day or two. So it's quicker. One thing that's going to speed up your process is power of attorney documents. If you're looking for somebody or estimating that you may in the near future, get power of attorney documents lined up, because usually those are needed upon arrival anywhere that you're going to get care.
That's a great suggestion, because there's things you can do to be prepared.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things that you who are watching can do to be prepared, even if you were ever to need more care, is to have a file with all of your documents in order, your power of attorney, copies of your insurance cards, all of that's a great way to be prepared.
And you don't, have to be old to have something
No.
devastating happen either. So it's not necessarily a factor of age. So all of you listening, watching, hopefully you'll have power of attorney documents for yourself, not
Yes.
just for someone who you may be anticipating helping out.
Absolutely.
I was going to just say too, there are some tests that your doctor will do. We talked about how important it is that you get into your position before you come to assisted living, and one of those tests is a TB test. And I just mentioned that because that too can be time consuming. So that's just all a matter of how long it takes with your physician to get all the tests done.
Yes. And here we have a lot of acronyms. acronyms on this slide right now. You won't hear us using them. We will use the words because they just make more sense. But if you are looking for help for somebody, you may come across these words in literature or in speaking to other people. So we wanted these up here so that you would know what do these acronyms mean.
And I'll just add that you may see MC for memory care as well.
Yep, that's a good
That's a
point.
good-
MC might mean memory care.
More acronyms here. These are different therapies. We do offer rehab here in our skilled nursing unit. So someone may have a surgery and come for physical, occupational therapy following,
Yeah.
which is great.
So if you are looking, if you are anticipating a surgery coming up, maybe you're getting a new knee or shoulder or something, and you're in the hospital, and they ask you where you'd like to go for rehab, you could ask them to look to see if Knollwood has a space. Our rehab center is on the small side, but it has great ratings. And maybe, who knows, maybe we'll have an opening not needed by a resident here, and you'll be able to come and have rehab here and then go back to your house or condo. And if you live here, you won't have to wonder where you're going to get rehab.
Yes.
You'll know where you're going to get your rehab. Another page full of acronyms, more related to the nursing side of things. These are typically terms you're going to hear, of course, throughout the United States as well. So if anybody's looking in places other than DC, what you're learning today can carry with you. One thing that is a little bit different in different parts of the country. In this area, most nurses are either going to be an RN, registered nurse, or a licensed practical nurse. But in some states, you may see licensed vocational nurse, and they are very similar to a licensed practical nurse. Neither of those types of nurses have as much nursing school as a registered nurse. But they've usually gone through at least 2 years of schooling to be either a vocational or a practical nurse, and a registered nurse has at least a 4-year degree, if not more. We talked about these. You talked about the AIDS earlier.
Yeah, so you this kind of talks again about the different aides that you'll have helping you or caring for you in your home or your community. So CMA is your certified medicine aide. So that's the only person that really is certified to give you your medication. CNAs have to have the CMA as well in most places to be trained in giving medication. And then the CNA is the certified nursing assistant, is going to be the one to help you with your bathing and dressing and things like that. And home health aide, they can actually have the other certifications as well. They can have the CNA and CMA depending on what your home aide has. So.
So now we have, it is very common, almost every assisted living or nursing center will have social workers employed by them. And they do a kind of a variety of services. Some may help with long-term care insurance, helping you file claims. They may help if you need, certain specialists of different accessing different types of care, referrals to the community at large, maybe even new physicians. They kind of sometimes help with some personal issues too, especially if somebody doesn't have family.
Yes.
And so usually a skilled nursing center and assisted living centers usually always employ social workers. What would you add in?
Yeah, absolutely. They actually, they'll help with the grieving process. If somebody's lost a spouse, they'll help with even the grieving or the adjusting process. If you find out a diagnosis that's hard to deal with, there's just so many different ways that they help. And they also usually try to help residents acclimate into the community.
Yeah.
So meeting other
sometimes for
residents.
somebody that can even be a grieving process.
Absolutely.
If you're suffering in such a way that maybe you never got to live an independent living because maybe you were having trouble at your house or condo, and you know, now you're adjusting not just to a new home, but a new home with a care environment.
Mhm.
We have more questions over there, Elise?
I think we have one. So I think we touched about this a little bit. Do people who don't live at Knollwood use assisted living? Yes,
They can.
they
Yeah.
can.
We have availability.
Yes,
Yeah.
so our assisted living is small, so we aren't always able to have, we don't always have availability for outside people, but sometimes.
And then
you
they
never know.
become inside people.
Yep, so
Yes.
it's always best to reach out to us.
Mhm.
And we'll go from there.
In the assisted living at Knollwood, it's almost all one bedroom apartments.
Yeah.
With a little kitchenette, a very large bathroom, so that if somebody does need help with showering or teeth brushing, I mean, anything that you would do in your restroom, it's a great way to accommodate and help somebody. Or even if you just, maybe someone uses a walker and they can do things by themselves, but it's a great space. And then some of the assisted living apartments are studios, but most are one bedrooms
Yeah.
here.
That's a great lead into this next slide when we're talking about visual comparisons, assisted living versus nursing care. So Carolyn mentioned kitchenette. In assisted living, you're going to have something that looks maybe, you know, similar to like what you would see in a hotel room or something, you know, microwave, fridge, typically a smaller fridge, maybe a couple cabinets, nothing too crazy. But in nursing care, you're not going to have anything like that at all. Assisted living and nursing care, meals, snacks, those are things that are going to be included. Cars, and assisted living, maybe a resident or two
It's
may have a
very
car,
rare.
but yes, it is rare, but you'll see some employee cars.
Mhm.
With assisted living, like here, we have a few floor plan choices. Most of them are one kind of standard size we have, but we do have a couple that are not. Nursing care, it's just shared or private,
Mhm.
but that's really the only difference.
Yeah, it's usually one room living.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Way to really visualize that would be, you know, assisted living, picture a nice hotel suite, and nursing care is going to be more like a hotel suite. A hospital suite, sorry.
Yeah.
Is kind of the way that I visualize the differences. And, you know, and then we're not talking about independent living, but that's more like an apartment, which is kind of
Yeah.
assisted living versus, yeah.
Yes, that's
Assisted
a great way
living,
to
you're
put
gonna
it.
have you know, an independent living, you'll have a kitchen, maybe as nice as the one in your house, maybe even nicer.
Yes.
So it depends. Yeah. And one thing that I like to point out is when people are shopping around, and many assisted living centers will market themselves as an independent living community or a retirement community.
Sneaky.
And so if you've looked at communities in the past, but maybe you haven't been to a life plan community, you may have an image in your mind about independent living that is inaccurate. So one way that I help people differentiate between how do they know if they're looking at an assisted living community or an independent living community. So if you were at a community and you're trying to figure it out and you're thinking, gee, you know, this doesn't really look quite like I expected. Ask them how many apartments they have in total. And then ask them how many are licensed for assisted living in total. And that will give you the information on whether you're actually looking at assisted living that they're selling as independent living, or whether it is independent living and maybe they also have assisted living. And in some places, assisted living has a nurse 24/7. It's a regulation in DC, but not every state has that regulation. So assisted living may or may not have nurses around the clock. Nursing centers have to, and they have to have a registered nurse around the clock, not just a licensed nurse, but an actual registered nurse. Assisted living, you're definitely going to see aides around the clock, not companions, but aides around the clock. And you'll see a social worker, not necessarily around the clock, but they're often enough to, usually maybe on a daily basis or at a minimum, at least during the work week.
And I would just say that if I was searching for assisted living, I would actually, it would be important to me that they did have an RN 24 hours a day. So you don't always find that, but that's a question that I would ask in assisted living because it makes a big difference.
And you will find that in Washington DC because
Yes.
it's a regulation this is a state level regulation, but in some states you may not see that. And to be honest, in some places, you may not even see a nurse
In the community.
in the community. There's maybe one assigned to it, but maybe they're on call or they're off site. So you want to find out the hours that the nurse is physically present. It doesn't necessarily mean they're doing anything wrong, but.
Right, it's just different regulations.
And this is just a continuation of the visual comparison. So in nursing care, you are going to see people who are probably less mobile, in a wheelchair or in a bed, just depending.
Maybe using a walker.
Yep, maybe.
The dining rooms at a nursing center won't have a chair at every part of the table.
Right.
Because some of the residents are wheelchair users, so they would remain in their wheelchair during dining. In assisted living, you're typically going to see a chair at every seat, but you'll probably see quite a few residents with walkers or canes too, but it's going to be very common. And there were always more nurses in a nursing environment than in an assisted living environment. So, so we'll look at this. With COVID still around, can families visit their families at assisted and nursing care? A lot of that is driven by regulations. And I would say probably you're going to have to ask at the specific place. If COVID is present in the community, then the various Department of Health have different regulations on visiting that can change from day to day or week to week. At Knollwood, we haven't had visiting restrictions in quite a long time because the Department of Health keeps tabs on us. And so, we don't have to have as many restrictions. Our staff are all restricted. So we are doing, our staff who enter the assisted neighborhood or the nursing neighborhood are wearing masks and shields, but residents are not. And the residents who have friends or family coming to see them or coming to take them out to do something do not have to be masked or shielded. But that's just gonna,
And I was just gonna say, so it's asking about COVID visiting. It's really dependent on the county that you're looking in, right? Because doesn't the health department establish that?
Sometimes
For
it can be county, but sometimes in our immediate area, but I'm not sure when you get branched farther out into other states.
Okay,
But most health departments are by county. DC, of course, is a city.
right.
So here we're by the city, but
Before
probably
before my coming to Knollwood,
Yeah.
it was based on county where I was before.
yes.
Yeah.
I think some of that has to do with the size of the state, population of the state.
Yes.
Sure.
But, and
Yes.
someone wants to know, is there a chance to make special menu requests? And it says in both levels of care. So yes, assisted living and nursing, yes. And actually, there are a lot of special requests for diets when people are under care.
Yeah.
Some people may be a food allergy, but what if it's something you can't take with your medicine?
Medication. Yeah.
Or, sometimes with memory loss or other illnesses, some foods may no longer be appealing to somebody. And so if you don't want somebody to lose weight, you may say, okay, you know what, they keep requesting ice cream, we're gonna keep giving them ice cream.
Right, right. I know we had we had assisted living resident that recently moved in, and it was really important to her that she got a cheese and veggie platter.
Mhm.
And she's been getting that. That's just been part of her. She's a small eater. She doesn't weigh a lot, and that's been her request. And we've been able to accommodate that here for her. So, yeah,
I think I know
it's the
who you
little
mean.
things that make
Who
people
also
happy.
gets helped to the library a couple
Yes,
times a week.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, who she's talking about is a person who also, at Knollwood, the assisted living is connected to the independent living.
Mhm.
So you will see residents of assisted living sometimes participating in the independent living areas, which is nice. But the same cheese and cracker or cheese and fruit woman also has a very big history on books herself, an author and a writer and journalist. But for her to figure her way out to the big library that we have here on campus, she wouldn't be able to manage that on her own. So a couple times a week, one of the aides actually escorts her, makes sure she finds her way to the library, drops her off, and then comes back a couple hours once she's had her fill to help her back to her assisted living apartment. So
That's really nice.
yes.
So we actually have a question that kind of goes hand in hand with this slide. So the question was, my mom has some memory loss. When, at what point do people need memory care? And so we're gonna kind of dig into eligibility for assisted
Mhm.
versus nursing and like what would make someone ineligible.
Mhm. Yeah, because many or probably most memory care arrangements that you're going to find in the greater world are offering memory care at the assisted living level of living. Knollwood has it at the nursing level, so it's different. So with an assisted living, there are different regulations about being able to kind of get around, being able to evacuate if you need to. And those are regulatory items and can also vary somewhat by state. So it really depends not just on the fact that somebody has a memory loss illness, but what can or can't they do, and whether they have stable health or unstable health, chronic illness or an acute illness, and how much help with activities of daily living do they need. So here it's going to, so that demarcation is really more based on kind of the memory aside.
Yeah.
And looking at the person in entirety. So for assisted living, you can see now the eligibility for assisted living. And these are very uniform throughout the country in different states. Sometimes there may be some slight variations. Sometimes people may start off in assisted living meeting all of this eligibility criteria that they're looking at, but let's say their health takes a further decline. Maybe they were originally able to transfer independently and now they need help. Sometimes there may be scenarios where people could add on additional care to avoid a nursing stay, or maybe to prolong their time in assisted living. But that's going to also depend. It's safety is a huge thing, and cost.
Yeah.
Because for someone to add on care in assisted living, it would end up costing more than the nursing care. The environment is slightly different, which sometimes people like that better. But it's going to be the whole picture. There are some medications that really cannot be safely administered from a regulatory standby to an assisted living resident. So things that are either highly addictive or very, very dangerous, like some opioids. So it might be, so people's medical needs can really drive whether or not they're eligible for assisted living or not. Most states, you have to be able to pay for assisted living out of your own funds or a family member's funds. There are some states that have Medicaid for assisted living. They're rare, but you can find them. And I think they might be becoming less rare, but they usually have long waiting lists. And like in Washington DC, for example, there are many, many assisted living centers here, but only 2 accept Medicaid.
And I was just going to touch on that question that you got about, memory care. Some of the medications that you were naming, maybe they start in assisted living and they decline to where they need nursing, and maybe it's because they're combative. Maybe they've got dementia or Alzheimer's and they're just being combative. And one of those medications that can help with that's often needed more of a physician looking after them in nursing, kind of a memory care environment. Or somebody can have some memory loss, maybe it's just starting, the memory loss is just starting, and mom may not remember little things, but she's still appropriate for assisted living if she fits this criteria that we have listed here. But it's more when mom, she leaves her apartment and goes into her neighbor George's apartment and sits down on his couch or his toilet because she thinks it's her apartment. And that kind of thing starts to happen. That's when memory care may be more appropriate.
Yeah.
Those kind of things, the wandering away and getting a little bit confused on how to get back to her apartment and or the behavioral issues.
Yes. Actually, my next door neighbor wandered out of his house on Saturday morning as I was sitting there having coffee and kind of waved at him through the window, and then he kind of walked up the house. He doesn't remember me. And then I mentioned his wife and named her, and he said, "Who is that?" So I go outside in my stocking feet and it just rained, so it's kind of wet outside. I go next door and I'm like, I ring the doorbell. She had no idea he was out in the neighborhood.
Scary.
He was appropriately dressed, which was good because it was cool Saturday morning, but he didn't remember who she was. And I got him home by luring him that there was fresh coffee
That's
brewing
scary.
next door. But if I hadn't been sitting at the kitchen window, I would, who knows where, there's woods behind my house. He could have been in the state park.
It's very
And
scary.
she had told me that she hadn't slept, he was up all night, she hadn't slept that night at all. And I think it will be tough for her. She will have to have a memory care setting for him. He's very physically fit as well, so he could easily, kind of take off. And then Sunday, he wanted to talk to me about a business plan he had for me, a very detailed business plan. So he obviously was thinking that was somebody different than his next door neighbor.
Yes. And that actually brings up another point. Memory care, just so you all watching that may not know, sometimes we in the industry think that things are common. So memory care is actually secured environment. So once the person, like Caroline's neighbor, they'd have to go through codes and things to get outdoors. And that's what gives them that secure environment where, they have a whole community that they can go exploring in, and even usually a safe courtyard to do so. But I have worked in this industry 20 years, and I have unfortunately had a couple of residents climb over fences or under fences, or even have watched the code be put in and memorized it, because their memory does work for a few minutes sometimes. So it's just a more secure environment.
I think another thing too that's important to note with memory care, it doesn't always mean forgetfulness either.
No.
I think so many people are hooked on the idea of forgetfulness. It could be bad judgment, personality change.
Yes.
Those are signs. So, if somebody was always, very wise about maybe their driving habits, or very wise about managing their money.
Yes.
Yep. And all of a sudden they kind of become irresponsible or careless. That's very often a sign of a memory loss illness.
Sometimes it's eating habits as well. Maybe they liked vegetables and ate healthy, and now they're only eating Twinkies.
Yes.
For
because
every meal.
the sugar is a big draw for people with memory loss illness.
Yes.
And I'm not really quite sure why, but they sometimes could subsist on sugary foods. And then, so with, we're going to compare a little bit about the regulatory environment between assisted living and nursing care residences. So they're both are regulated. The difference is there's a state level regulation for assisted living, whereas nursing care is both state and federal. And part of that is because it involves often Medicare and or Medicaid, which are governed at different levels. And local Department of Health within counties or within states are involved in nursing care.
Mhm.
And same with assisted living. So they both have surveys, which means that a government person will come and inspect. But there are different types of inspections for assisted living versus nursing care. They're both have to be licensed. So, and the nursing care also has medical type care, whereas assisted living really isn't medical care, it's really personal care. Again, in some places, a nurse may be required 24/7, and in other places they might not be. Back on the tests, who did Julie before?
That was
Heidi.
Heidi,
Yep.
yes.
Okay.
So do y'all remember that Julie, what she needed? Does she need nursing or assisted living? She's having issues with her diet, and she's got some incontinence, and she's got some medications that she's having a hard time monitoring. So what do you think that would be?
And I think some of the keywords are, she is not managing her diabetes.
Yes.
Okay, so
cannot
that's
be
that's
counted on.
very
That and the
important.
incontinence are keywords to me.
Mhm.
And yeah, her diet, her medications, and the incontinence are the concerns.
So what do you all think?
So the underlined words are kind of the important things,
The
medical
keys,
issues.
yep.
Again, we're talking how assisted living is really personal care, not really medical.
Mhm.
And it's required monitoring, so that monitoring probably is frequent. And she has quite a bit of trouble with incontinence, not a little bit, but quite a bit.
And I'm sad you pointed that out, because you can have a little bit of incontinence and be in assisted living.
Or even independent.
I was just gonna say, or, independent living, sometimes that's an issue. This is quite a bit of trouble.
Us women know that incontinence can come along with a sneeze here and there at a certain age.
Lots of reasons, yes.
Yes.
And so, yes, that's important. to
So,
know. So she-
diabetes is, and some people, diabetes is more chronic.
Yeah.
Hers, it definitely is more acute because she is not
Sticking to her
managing it.
diet.
Yeah.
She's not managing it,
Yeah.
right? Let alone, but the medical issues, quite a bit of trouble with incontinence. And the diabetes are kind of the key things here.
Absolutely.
So Julie
I
needs
saw.
nursing care. All right. This is
So we've got
yours.
Jane and John. It's a couple. Okay, couple key. There are keywords in here that should stand out to you. So what do you think? Assisted or nursing? Assisted. So one of the main things, and we mentioned this when you're in one of the other slides, when you're looking at communities, does it have a kitchenette? That is a key thing right there. Assisted living, you're going to see that. Nursing care, no way, Jose, you're not going to see a kitchenette. Question coming in. Woohoo. So Jay needs help with showering. That's one of the activities of daily living. And again, that's another point that we talked about. If you're in assisted living, you may be receiving help with one or a couple activities of daily living, but you're not getting assistance with all of them. So in this example, Jay needs help with showering. That's just one. John has a stable but chronic illness.
Maybe he's managing his diabetes.
Exactly. So those were some
Yes.
of the keywords that we were hoping you would look at. And medication reminder, that's,
Different than having to give you the medicine.
yes, exactly. So that, again, assisted living. All right, so hopefully everybody got that right, and Caroline's gonna look at one of our questions.
Says if a couple lives in independent living, and I'm gonna address this from a Knollwood perspective, and one of them needs assisted living, I'm gonna take these separately, because assisted living and nursing are different things, right? One of them needs assisted living, okay? Well, with a couple, assisted living support, usually one spouse actually gives that to the other. If you have a wife who forgets to take medication, you may be the one reminding your wife. If your wife needs help with a shower, you probably, hopefully help her out. so often with a couple, assisted living is often skipped.
Yeah.
Okay, so you would probably remain together, help the other person out. If you yourself had problems, that might be different, but, or maybe you would bring in an hour of help a day to help with something.
Yeah, like maybe you can help your wife with getting dressed, but you don't want to help her in the shower. You'd rather have
Yes.
someone come in and do that,
Yeah, hair washing and all that.
Right,
She
exactly.
could have a complicated hairdo. Now nursing is different because nursing is a medical need. You could bring in nursing to your apartment. Is very, very, very expensive.
Yeah.
It's going to cost you way more
A lot of
than
money.
it does at a nursing center, which is why nursing centers exist. So if one of you needed nursing care, then one would live in the nursing here and the other would live in their independent apartment. And yes, you would have bills for both.
Mhm.
Just like if you're in your house right now and one of you needed nursing care, you're going to still be paying for everything in your house and you're going to be paying the nursing center. The difference is here, it's close by. You can walk down the hallway and be together anytime you wish. In fact, you might even wish to have your spouse spend a good portion of the day with you at your apartment and return at night or whatever arrangements you work out. There's no visiting hours. You can visit, or they're unlimited visiting hours, maybe is a better way to say it. You don't have to get in your car to go visit your wife and worry that it's snowing outside and that you don't like to drive in the snow. Plus it's 5-star rating here, but so people will end up, paying for what they use.
Yeah.
I think a life plan community is ideal for couples because then if you, for whatever reason, progress in your age different or your health differently, you can stay together like you were saying. I think it's just so ideal because you don't know what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
even if one of you ends up in a different neighborhood, you get to stay in the same community.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's easier to see each other and spend time together, which
Absolutely.
is nice.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. All right,
That was a good question.
great question.
Okay, pricing. So nursing care is always priced by the day.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't even know actually how that came about, but probably it's relatable to the fact that sometimes people are in nursing care for short periods of time for rehab. So that's, so you might not need rehab for an exact month. You might need it for 3 weeks or 17 weeks or something, but it's priced by the day. Assisted living is most often priced by the month because usually it's a place where you're going to live. And so you're paying a monthly fee, or at some places it might be rent, because at some places you might have a lease. At Knollwood, you wouldn't have a lease, you would have a residency agreement. So you're not going to be have to worry about your lease not being renewed here at Knollwood.
And often with assisted nursing, the prices are usually all inclusive, and assisted living, the prices are often, there's a price for your housing,
Like
basically.
room and board.
And then there's a
Yes.
pricing for your care. And that's when you're out, researching on pricing and assisted living. Make sure you ask that. I'm guilty of this coming from that industry, that we kind of can bait you, which is no, it doesn't do that. But anyways, they may say, $5,000 a month, but that doesn't include any of the care costs as well. So those usually are divided into two things, but obviously you're going to have to pay for all of them when you move into assisted living. Where here we have more of an inclusive pricing.
Yes, things that wouldn't be included would be like if you are incontinent and or a haircut, yeah. Different things, and we do have an ancillary charge list, but as Heidi was saying, there is a lot more that's included here. You're paying your monthly service charge, and that's going to include help with those few
Medication
activities of daily
management.
living,
Yeah.
medication management.
Showering,
Yes.
What? Finding your way to the library.
Yes.
Choosing
Now, if
crackers.
Yes,
right, if
choosing
you
crackers.
have diabetes and you need, your finger sticks and insulin injections, that's an added cost. But the help with the activities of daily living, that's included here.
So this is to give you an idea of pricing in our area here. And I have broken it down, even though I said assisted living is usually priced by the month. I've just broken it down for daily, just to give you a comparison. So, you know, you're going to spend over 150 grand a year in this region for nursing care. Assisted living is probably slightly less than half that cost. But again, it doesn't include, you know, it's very different. You're not going to need as much care in assisted living. It's more of a supportive environment where you're watched over. And nursing is definitely a care environment. It includes medical, you know, you have medical issues as well. You'll still have medical bills. So I should probably make that clear in any
Yes.
arrangement, no matter where you live, you're still going to have medical bills.
Yeah.
So you have a doctor's appointment, or you have prescriptions, or you need, you know, x-rays, or who knows, you know what,
Right.
you will still have medical bills.
Some more tests.
Yeah.
Woohoo.
Okay.
And this, notice it says Medicaid, not
Yes.
Medicare, because that can be tricky for some.
And Carolyn actually did answer this already earlier, so
Yeah.
hopefully you were paying attention. The answer is, it's actually not straightforward, true or false. So as we move to the next slide,
Mostly false.
mostly false.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not cut and dry, it's not black and white. As Carolyn mentioned before, it depends on where you live, state, here in the district, there are a couple places, 2 assisted living
Yeah, literally.
properties
Yeah.
that accept Medicaid waivers. And so that can take a long time, and it's not common, so it's not
You'd be on
something.
a waiting list.
Yes.
And you'd probably be in nursing care by the time you actually made it to the top of the waiting list, which is
Yeah.
sad.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are some states that require assisted livings to take a certain amount of Medicaids.
Correct.
But even I have experienced in those states that there's still a wait list.
Yes,
Yeah.
because it's not very many slots usually.
Yes,
Mhm.
it's usually 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So,
So, yeah, back up one more though, Jess. Yeah, I also wanted to, that kind of point out, Medicaid is a type of health care for people who, are pretty much mostly at the poverty level, underinsured, what have you. But it also does cover nursing for people that meet certain income and technically as well asset thresholds. I've only posted the income threshold on here because if someone is above that income threshold, it doesn't matter what the other thresholds are. There's no point in going there, but there is an income threshold which varies state to state. In Virginia, DC, and Maryland are all very close in the threshold. And I think this is the DC threshold right there.
Mhm.
But at any rate, there's no point in looking at it if you can't meet a threshold. And you can look on the Medicare.gov, excuse me, there's a Medicaid site that I will direct you to at the end where you can, you know, if you want to investigate a specific state, you can. I also caution people, I'll go off on my bandwagon right now, but I see a lot of commercials, advertisements for attorneys who will help you get your mother on Medicaid, hide her assets. I think that, well, I think it's a very irresponsible thing to do because every taxpayer is footing the bill for Medicaid. So to intentionally hide money so someone can receive Medicaid funds when there are people who truly need them. And Medicaid has a look back. They're going to look back 5 years at least. Talk is underway about looking back even further, but to see if people have hidden money intentionally to have someone become eligible for Medicaid. On the other end of the stick, I would advise you, if you're thinking of that, to go to a nursing center that accepts Medicaid and see the environment that somebody receiving Medicaid will live under, because they will have a roommate, most likely.
Sometimes up to 3.
Yeah.
There can be 4 in a room.
Yeah.
Which,
So you just, you want to really think twice before you would go that direction.
Yes.
Leave Medicaid for those who truly need it.
Absolutely. I've had residents I've seen change that from a assisted living community that does not accept it to going to one that does, and I go visit them, and it's night and day, apples and oranges, and quite frankly, a depressing environment. I'm happy it's there for those that need it, but it should definitely be safe for those that need it.
And you know what? It would be better for those who needed it, only those who needed it.
Used it.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, so how, one thing, how do you pay for this? I don't know if it's a good time to say that if you have long-term care insurance, it does help pay for assisted living.
Mhm.
So that's one of the ways that you can pay for it if you're not in the Medicaid bracket. And that would be one way to plan for that.
yes,
Get it, but like any insurance, you have to get it before you need it.
yeah.
Check into
And
it
it-
now.
right. And how much you would get reimbursed.
Right.
Depends on your policy and,
Your age of,
yes, there's
purchasing
all different factors as
Yes.
well. Yeah.
now we can go to the next one. Medicare covers assisted living.
Yes.
Okay, true or false? This has a black and white answer.
It does.
Nope, never.
No.
Yeah, it's for short-term rehab. I mean, it's still gonna cover doctor visits. It's, anything that you use your insurance for now, it still covers.
Yes.
Mhm.
The difference is that for nursing, it doesn't cover long-term nursing. So
No.
if somebody needs to live in a nursing center, it's not gonna cover that. It covers short stays. And there are other criteria to whether or not it will cover that short stay.
Yes.
Yes, you
So-
have to be admitted to the hospital for 3 nights. You can't be there under observation, and there's all kinds of things.
You
so-
have to be able to have improvement,
Yes.
or it won't
Mhm.
apply. So there's a
Yes.
lot of other thresholds, but just so you know, Medicare does not cover assisted living, and it also does not cover long-term nursing.
No.
It does sometimes cover short-term nursing stays. So then now we're going into payment sources.
Yep.
So, we threw up independent living here just to have the full range relating to Knollwood. So people pay for independent living out of their own money. But in assisted living, people usually are paying out of their personal funds.
Mhm.
They might have long-term care insurance.
And it may cover some of
Yes.
some things.
Yeah,
depending
usually
on-
long-term care insurance is not going to pay your whole bill,
Mhm.
but sometimes it might cover a nice chunk, a third of it or half of it. It's very helpful. And helpful offset. And Medicaid, not at Knollwood for assisted living, but there are 2 assisted livings in DC that might accept Medicaid. So
Mhm.
Medicaid does sometimes, it's rare, but help with assisted living. And then nursing care, you will be able to use Medicaid if you become impoverished. You may be able to use Medicare for a rehab stint or a portion of it. And, long-term care insurance, that's an asset that you have, and it's the same as personal funds, because when you have a long-term care policy, you actually pay all your bills, and then a reimbursement comes to the person who carries the policy.
Mhm. Okay. So comparing Knollwood, you can, as we've mentioned before, independent living, that is our largest neighborhood here. So we do have assisted living, we do have skilled nursing, but they are smaller neighborhoods within our community. In assisted living and nursing care, you are going to see mostly singles. Occasionally, very rarely, you may have a couple who's living in assisted living together. But that is not common. In assisted living, we have a couple different sizes of apartment homes. Nursing, it's going to be shared, or we do have a lot of private rooms. We did.
Yeah, we only have 4 rooms that are shared.
Mhm.
So the majority of our rooms are private, and actually, because of COVID, even the ones that are shared, we're not really using them as shared right now.
Yeah, so that is nice. Our assisted living is deficiency free, our nursing care is 5-star rated. And our independent living residents do have priority access to rehab stays, assisted living, or long-term care as needed.
Mhm.
Okay,
Deficiency free, that's amazing. If you're out there looking for communities, there's a way for you to go on the state's website and look up your community to see if it has any state things. And most of them have, so I'm pretty proud of this.
yeah,
But it's hard too, you know, you need to know a lot about deficiencies, I think, because, you know, an average number of deficiencies vary by state, but it could be 15 or 16. And a deficiency could be something like bland eggs. It could be something like harm to a person or potential for harm. It could be something like a fly at your dumpster, which I had that in Michigan once. Really, a fly at the dumpster. Wouldn't you expect a fly?
a fly at the dumpster, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think bland eggs, that might have been in Connecticut.
Mm.
So
I got one for not wearing my name tag, but usually.
Yes.
But usually they do tell you when you look up the regs what they're for.
yes, but you have to be, you know,
Yeah.
you can't just
But I
say,
did
oh,
get tagged for not wearing
yes.
a name tag,
Mhm.
so they are strict.
Yeah.
So for us to be deficiency free
It's
says
really
a lot.
hard.
Yes. These are some additional resources that you can explore on your own if you'd like further information. And some of this is where Carol Ann has pulled some of the information for this presentation.
Mhm.
So we just wanted to put those up there for you.
And this presentation is recorded.
It is.
So if you know, trying furiously to scribble and write this
Oh my
down right
gosh.
now.
Don't worry about that. You can always come back.
Yeah,
to
you could either email us through our website
it. Mhm.
or go to our website in a couple days and this will be recorded, and
Yep,
you might
and
have to listen to the whole thing to get to this, but
yes, and
Mhm.
you'll see our website at the bottom of the screen, but it is knollwoodcommunity.org.
yeah, or if you have my email or Helen or Heidi's email and you want a copy of this presentation, you can email us
Absolutely.
and we'll send you a copy.
Yes.
And give us a call to go on a tour of Knollwood, because we would
Yes.
love to show you around.
Mhm.
See?
Yes, so we're coming to the end here, and as Heidi said, please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you would like a tour. We do have a waiting list.
Yeah, so we're not going to be expecting you to come and not go home.
Yeah.
Yeah. No pressure tour.
Yes.
Just come see how gorgeous our community is. And
Yes.
It has a nice feel to it. You only get experience in person.
Absolutely. We do have another webinar coming up. It is one where you can meet more residents. We've done a ton of these. Every time it's different people. If you would like to see a previous presentation with some residents, they're all recorded. They're all on our website, knollwoodcommunity.org. We love doing these. It's a great way to get a feel for what kind of people you'd be living with. The culture here at Knollwood, we have tons of people with similar backgrounds and tons of people with different backgrounds. So it's just great. And then we do also have another brunch and browse coming up. This is the last of the series. We've been doing this for 3 months. This is the last one. We're doing this year.
The brunch browse?
The brunch and browse, yeah. So it's June 23rd. If you want to come, you have to call us and RSVP.
Today.
Today.
Sorry,
Yeah.
but we're almost
Today.
full. We
Yeah.
only have a few slots left. We'd love for you to come, but
And
we're almost full.
Our
Yes.
dining staff have to be given a heads up.
Yes.
So that's why you'd have to call today. And the brunch and browse, it's what happens is it really should be a browse and a brunch.
Yeah.
Because you're actually gonna, one of us, each of us take people on tours and
Yeah.
you're gonna see maybe 5 or 6 different apartment homes here. That's the browse part.
Mhm.
And then following the browse, you get to brunch.
Mhm.
And that is on a Thursday.
Yeah, this Thursday.
And
2
then, so if
days.
you want to come, call us up and we would give you specifics on the time that you would come.
It's a really fun event. It's one of my favorite events that we've had because, as Caroline always says, once you've seen one apartment at Knollwood, you've seen one apartment at Knollwood. And this gives you the opportunity to see so many different apartments. And not only that, you get to meet the residents and you get to see how they have decorated their home, which is my favorite part.
And it's specifically great if you are interested in 2 bedrooms. If you come
Yes.
in for a tour, we are probably going to show you a 1-bedroom apartment that, we may be able to show you a vacant 2-bedroom, but more often than not, you would see a 1-bedroom or even an efficiency. If you want to see a variety of 2-bedroom apartments that if there's enough lead time, we can call residents and arrange, but this is a great opportunity to see a lot of 2-bedrooms in one day. They're lived in, see how they set them up, just like Heidi said. So give us a call today. If you want to come, you have to call us today. Okay? Yes, or you can email marketing@knollwoodcommunity.org. But that's about it. We hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and we'll see you next time. Okay?
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Bye now.